Hello, everybody. Welcome to Film Family. Today, we're going to be reviewing the new Netflix film, Marriage Story. And let's get right into it. So, this is directed and written by Noah Baumbach and starring Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver. The movie's gotten a lot of buzz. Some say it's worthy of like a bajillion different Oscars. A lot of people are campaigning for Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson to win the Best Actor and Actress categories. And, so this movie had pretty big stakes going into it. I went in not really knowing too much about it. I mean, it's a pretty basic plot, but I really like this movie. I think it's so well done on a lot of levels, and I'll go more in depth later, but I think this is probably one of the best, if not like the best Netflix films I've ever seen.
I've been sick, so I sound a little stuffy, but I agree. Like, I didn't know anything about this going in until we were going to watch it. And then I was reluctant to watch it because it's called A Marriage Story. I'm like, come on, this is not a movie for me. Then Adam Driver is in it. Come on, this guy from Star Wars, and this isn't for me. But I was so impressed by this movie. And I feel like Adam Driver, he almost redeemed himself to me from the Star Wars role. And Scarlett Johansson, she killed it with her acting. And I guess we're going to talk about it more, but I was really, really impressed with this movie.
I really like this movie too, but I was, we've talked off the thing, but I was it got me angry. And I think that's a sign of a good movie if the actors and the story and the directing can make you angry at something, at a situation. It was almost like, not deja vu, but my pet peeve is watching people argue, especially people that I'm invested in. And there's some serious arguments, and I know we'll talk about it, but it's like just seeing two people that are supposed to get to, be in love, and then they're just going at each other. It's just, yeah. So I had different emotions. Like, I had emotion of like, I hate this movie, but then I was like, but it's brilliant because the fact that I hate it means that it's effective. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, this movie definitely like highlights some of the problems with relationships and marriage in general, and maybe has something to say on just the institution of it and how people should act with each other. And it definitely, as the movie goes further and it gets into the legal aspects of a divorce, it goes into some of the morally gray efficacy involved in divorce and some of the things that people do. And I was watching it and I was like a little disgusted at points because I was like, wow, this is just, not how I thought it went. And, for me, I just think this is a movie that really screamed realism at me. And, I'm younger, so I haven't seen as much as either of the two of you, but this is a movie that like kind of makes you reluctant for marriage in some ways, but also can really, if you watch it, I think in the right way and see what Noah Baumbach is trying to say, you can see some of the things that you can do to sort of avoid a flawed marriage where, 15 years down into your marriage, you've realized that, you've wasted 15 years because you're finally not happy. Because the way, your mind works is it's only ever, thinking up to the point it's at. So even if you had 14 happy years, now that's really going to be, kind of counted as your brain is thinking about all the negative things it's currently feeling. And the way he captures that, I just think is so well done. The acting, again, is fantastic.
I think that this movie it's fitting for this time because I don't think that it would have done so well maybe like 20 years ago, just because divorce is becoming a more common thing within marriages. And I think that for a while it was kind of taboo to talk about divorce and show it in the way that he decided to show it in this movie. And I don't have any experience in any type of divorce aspect per se, but the way they depicted the lawyers and the courtrooms and kind of how the message got screwed around there and how the lawyers are taking liberties to say things for you that you didn't really mean. Like, I've seen that happen. I can tell you that was spot on, and Ray Liotta and Laura Dern, they were fantastic.
They were really
incredible, and I mean, obviously the main actor and actress were doing much better job because they had more screen time, but I feel like they portrayed the griminess of lawyers. No offense to lawyers, but, very well. You need them to be like that, lawyers.
It's interesting too is that Adam Driver's character in this movie. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but this movie's on Netflix, so hopefully you watched it before you came here. But his first lawyer that he gets, because you see how Nicole takes a lot of the lawyer opportunities. The guy he gets is this really nice guy who's kind of older and more more wise, and then he realizes like, I can't win with the nice guy. Yeah. I need Ray Liotta's type of lawyer, which is probably a true message. Yeah, truer than people.
I felt like a personal connection personally to that. I remember thinking like, this guy's awesome. He really thinks about me nice, but I need a shark, and that's why you have to go back to Ray Liotta because he needed that shark.
Yeah, it's just it triggered me in so many different ways, but also because of the kid and the kid's involved in all this nonsense and was almost used as a pawn in certain things and whatever. And they had an agreement to like play nice, and it just once that was thrown away, it was like the gloves were off.
Yeah, I love too how their performances build, because the last hour is definitely the most venomous of the movie. As you can see in the first like hour and a half, they're really trying to make it work in some ways, and you can see some of that awkwardness because when you look in somebody's eyes, you spent however many years they've been married. I forgot what they said, but however many years they'd been married for, and when you look in their eyes and like there's all that history behind it, and you're just trying to pick up your kid or get get these divorce forms and all this stuff, and you just kind of see them, and that history has sort of been like broken. I think that was something you could really see through the actors' performances, and then by the end of the movie, it was all building up, and it's kind of this climax, and it cracks, and the facade breaks, and then they just kind of unleash their fury on each other. That was just really compelling to watch, and I think the last hour for this movie has some really incredible scenes.
I think also geographically, like it's like New York versus LA, like the lifestyle,
theater versus movies versus.
It's like there's a duality there because you couldn't pick a more different, New York lifestyle versus LA. It's like
And I have a question. Speaking of that, what is this thing about more space? Okay, like. I get it. New York doesn't have space, but LA doesn't really have space either.
I mean, it's got like places like Malibu you can just go.
Yeah, but not just anybody. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, we have so much more space.
I think they mean like if you ever just want to like drive and be alone, you could probably
actually be alone.
Aptly
like
do that.
New
York is like kind of
well, relatively yes, but I just want everybody to know
it is relative.
It's not that much space.
Yeah, they definitely have this divide with the city, and then you see some of the trouble with the son because I think they have houses in both places, and they have like her parents live in California, but his company and his job, and also her job at one point is in New York, and so you really see some of these problems. But I think something that's probably the best thing about this movie is that Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver show the problems they have with each other through the other one's reaction, and a big thing that you see is that Adam Driver's character is kind of selfish in a couple ways, and Scarlett Johansson's not really understanding of him, and so it never really picks a side. I don't think. I definitely had parts of the movie where I was leaning towards somebody, and then I heard something, and I was like, "Well, if you see it from that perspective, I definitely don't agree with you anymore." And so I think that's actually kind of realistic when looking at a divorce because it's pretty similar to it in a lot of the ways where you're kind of flip flopping and seeing them kind of just unleash these problems they have about each other. To people they knew, and then eventually each other. It was really interesting to watch because you could kind of see both sides in this divorce.
Yeah. I think there's a movie called Kramer versus Kramer, which I haven't seen, but it's a classic, but it goes through that, two people getting divorced and all that, and there's the court thing in it. And but I definitely know on that side, it's geared towards you're rooting for the guy in it. And so I liked how this one is like there is no side. It's kind of like, hey, they're both at faults. They both have major faults, and I like that aspect of it.
I agree. I watched it with my girlfriend too, so I wanted to see like what she felt about it, and we both kind of felt the same way. Where some points you're on Adam Driver's side, and then sometimes you're on Scarlett Johansson's side because there's no condoning any of this behavior, but for a long time you're on his side until you find out, that he cheated. Yeah. But then they explain further, and it's like, you know what I mean? It's hard to justify anybody's actions, and it's kind of like it is a bad situation to be in. It's a bad situation. Yeah, it's horrible, and
there's a certain level of like unhappiness that you see between them, and you can, as they break down the context of what happened in their marriage to make it come to this point, you can see that there's little and big moments that led to this area where they were just like, we just need to stop this marriage. And I was talking to Taj a couple of days ago, and we were talking about how a lot of these problems would have just been avoided if one of them, or actually if both of them, just talked to each other about these problems. And it's something that probably a lot of divorces could have been avoided by if some people just said, hey, this is a major problem and we need to talk about this and address this right now. But unfortunately, a lot of the times people keep it bottled up. But I thought that was very smart that this movie addressed that because it was realistic. But also the movie showed you, like, if you did some things differently, this situation may have never have happened. They have never needed to talk about divorce. Instead, they would have just talked about their problems, hopefully found a solution to it, and then, once it was resolved, they can get back to their marriage.
Yeah.
And the movie shows the frustration that, both of them have and never being able to have those talks.
Do you think they both still loved each other?
I mean, love is a tricky word. It's definitely subjective because some people probably love somebody on one day and then the next day say they hate them. But I think like true love is just feeling a compassion for somebody that's consistent, because it's different from liking somebody or even enjoying somebody's company. And, you know, at the end of the movie, when he reads the letter, you can definitely see that he feels something for her and her vice versa. And so that was something where I felt they still had some sort of connection. And the movie actually ended relatively positively. Like, I didn't know if it was going to end super cynical and have this, like, scene where they were just like, he's like, I hate you. And he's like, oh, marriage. And the movie was going to end. You know, I'm actually kind of glad it didn't end so dark. But I definitely think they have at least some sort of compassion for each other that, you know, was probably more present at the beginning of their marriage, but still exists on some sort of level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the trajectory of this movie and the way that they decided to start it out with first talking about what they really like about each other. And I felt like that gave a positive background on it. And then as you kind of see them go through it, it is like they're trying to keep it peaceful, but also it's very like surface level to me. They're not really addressing or talking about their problems. And then the lawyers start to do the talking for them. And then they start to do the talking. And that's when it gets really bad and a lot of stuff comes out. And then at the end, obviously, I don't think it would have worked if they got back together because it's too happy of an ending for too sad of a movie.
Yeah.
And to go completely cynical, that was not very rewarding. So I feel like the way they did is the best possible way they probably could have done.
Well, another thing too is it was funny that their lawyers were in a lot of ways like their therapists at some points, especially like the woman lawyer seemed a little more akin to her feelings. Ray Liotta was trying to get his paycheck, but she was like, you know, breaking it down. And then you think about it and you're like, well, you're not a licensed therapist. You're a lawyer. And at the end of the day, you're here for an agenda. And like, I thought that scene where they were actually working out the terms in the building where they were both there and they were just like they were talking about the other person's client like they were a monster. And then they were just like, once it was over, it was like, oh, it's just business. Now I'm going to talk to you who I'm fighting against in this case like you're a person. And it shows, again, some of those standards.
It's business to them, you know? Business, like you're a client. They don't really care about what you want. They just, it's on the paper. It needs to get done.
And also the fact that the Laura Dern character, she didn't want just it to be equal. She wanted more.
Yeah, that
she's like to win.
Yeah,
she wanted to win.
Yeah,
and
it's probably a pride thing too. If you have a job, you know.
Yeah, that's your reputation. You know.
So
I feel like two favorite scenes, one for Scarlett Johansson and one for Adam Driver for me, is when she first meets Laura Dern's character and she goes from crying to walking around going like, oh, this is a really good cookie, or oh, this is really cool. And I just felt it's not what you would expect to see in a movie for someone who's breaking down because of a divorce, but I feel like it's a realistic emotional response to something like that. Like, you may not be crying completely, you know, you may be in and out of reality. And then for Adam Driver, I really like the scene where the lady from the government came to watch him with his kid. And there was just, you could feel that tension, you know, like he wanted to impress her, but he was also kind of messing up because he was trying too hard. And she was just stone cold.
Yeah,
like
that was
nothing, you know?
That was the funniest part. I was telling Taj, like, I thought that girl killed it as acting. And there are people in those jobs who actually act that boring. And that was one of the things that I thought was funniest because, you know, she really kept it very, very monotone, very... I'm not moving my emotions, you know, I'm just going to keep it like this. And the way that he was trying to kind of like read what was going on with her, he's like, is she happy? Is she not? Like,
he was really trying to read
her.
her.
And then the worst thing that could happen, you know, getting cut, and then he's like, oh, it's not a big deal. And he's just bleeding, you know. And it's like, oh man, this is probably frustrating for this guy. And he's making food, and his kid wasn't helping either.
No, his kid
was like, do I
like
have
walked
to?
over
At the worst time, you know, it's like
no, that was. But I definitely think the scene that's going to be most remembered from this movie is definitely obviously the argument. And I gotta say that was one of the most like verbally brutal scenes I've ever seen, and it was something I really liked about it. Probably my favorite thing was not just the acting, which was fantastic, but the way that the insults weren't like an Aaron Sorkin type of insult, where it was like very clever and put together. You can tell they thought about it. They were jumbled. They were stumbling over their words, and it felt very authentic. Yeah, it's raw. And he says like, "I hope you die," and then starts crying. Like those types of emotions, because the human emotional spectrum is so hard to quantify and put on a screen, and that really show how, because it's so complex to actually put it on a screen, it's damn near impossible. And for him, for Noah Baumbach to be able to do that, I think it was a tough task, you know, because it's not something most people are able to do. And to see that, I was very thoroughly impressed, because I don't think I've seen many films that are able to show like the type of raw human emotion that is genuinely realistic.
I think that's also, you have to commend, I know we have already, but the actors, because you can write it, you can direct it, but if they're not giving it to you, they're not giving it to you.
Yeah.
And the fact that those two actors, just let it all out. Like, it's an ugly scene.
It is.
And some actors be like, well, I don't really want to go that far, but like Adam Driver went that far, and Scarlett, she went that far too. It's like, and I was just amazed at it. I really had more kudos towards them from watching that scene.
Yeah, when I heard like people were saying, "Oh, Adam Driver for Best Actor," I was like, "Listen, I think Adam Driver is a really solid actor, but there's no way." And I'm not mad at it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lean a little more towards Phoenix because I do feel he carries the movie on his shoulders, whereas this movie has better direction, writing,
But Scarlett
and a female
Johansson, though,
exactly.
she definitely has to.
So I think Phoenix kind of carries that while Adam Driver has Scarlett to help him.
Yeah.
And Scarlett Johansson's fantastic and Adam are fantastic. And if they don't get nominated, that would be a travesty. They will though.
100%.
But I think that they definitely should be in heavy consideration. I don't think I've seen a better female performance this year.
It's weird because I've obviously seen Avengers and all that stuff, and Captain America, Winter Soldier, and with Scarlett. I'm saying in terms of, but I totally forgot how good of an actress she was. But it's like Jojo Rabbit and then to this, like, is two good movies there. She had two good roles, different roles in the same year. And so I've always been a fan of hers. It's not like I was like, but now it's like, okay, I see what everyone's seeing.
I like actors who are able to go from blockbusters and drop good performances in those movies and then drop great performances in these types of more smaller films, because anybody who's able to drop a genuinely good performance in a blockbuster means they can act, because they're behind green screens, they're working with a lot more people. It's just a different type of filming process, and for them to give it their all and then do a movie like Marriage Story, which is so small and contained and really this isolated human story, and then kill it with that performance, that shows the true range of an actor. Yeah. So I think the acting in this movie was great. I think the script is fantastic.
Yep.
The direction was great. And honestly, this is just one of those movies that I feel like should be analyzed, because I think it really, more than most films I've ever seen, is able to really show what it's just like for somebody to exist in a situation. And whatever that situation is, this movie deals with divorce, but some movies might deal with somebody growing up or somebody moving to a different place or somebody dying near them. And whatever it is, I just think that a movie that's able to capture raw human emotion and that true authenticity, it's not something I ever think can be truly done, but this movie comes really close, and it's fantastic. And this is one of my favorite films of the year. I'm gonna give this a 9.5, just because there was a couple times where the kid would talk, and I felt like he was a little, not unrealistic, but I just thought he felt a little weirdly placed in the movie. And but besides that, I really have no qualms with the movie. It's fantastic.
I agree with 9.5, but for me, it's just because of the singing scene.
Oh, that was really good.
He did a great performance, but I didn't understand the purpose of it in the film. And like maybe that's him purging himself or whatever you want to say it symbolizes. But like I dealt with like 2 hours before of him getting all that stuff out of his system. I didn't need to see him
that was
sing.
actually funny, because I was watching that scene and I literally did like a brain tune out thing where you're like, all right, brain, just don't think about too hard. So I was kind of sitting back, and then I was like, wait, is this really good?
Yeah, is he actually singing right now?
No, but it was really good. Not his singing, but his lyrics in the scene. I actually like that scene a lot.
Yeah, he just kept doing verses, and I was like, "Is this gonna?"
Yeah.
And I'm not being mean. I was just like, "Is this gonna end?" Because I was
because
like
did he write it, or is he
Yeah.
just singing words? And who knew he could just
He's
like
in
flow
theater.
like that? You know what I mean? And then
I didn't know if it was that needed too. I know that it was important because it was kind of like a purging and all that stuff, but I think it could have just been shorter. But I'm gonna give it a 9.3. Not just because I really did enjoy this movie. It angered me, as I said, and it gave me the right emotions. But it's hard because I'm always looking for like joyful things during Christmas time. And this was not it, but it's a movie you have to see.
I definitely think too this is a movie that I'm gonna enjoy more when I'm older, because I just felt at
after
a
your
couple
second
parts.
divorce.
I just felt at a couple parts of this movie. I was watching it, and I as a person who likes movies enjoyed it, and I was like, this is a good film, but I just didn't get it because I'm not
You haven't gone through
that
that.
age and anything, So it's a movie I'm definitely gonna revisit as I get older and hopefully enjoy more. This is a really good film. Go see it. It's one of the best of the year. And like and subscribe. Tell us what you thought of this movie, and we will see you next time.